Welcome back to the second part of our conversation with Abhishek Manu Singhvi, eminent jurist turned politician, wherein we take him down memory lane to talk about various events in Life and Times with HT. Talking about some of your important cases, and you spoke about Shibu Soren, the JMM case. How was it dealing with people like Marandi, Shibu Soren? Take me through some anecdotes, some interesting.
This is very early on. So this is 96. R.K. Anand became famous with that case, but I was the one handling it first. A, tribals are very simple people. B, they come without any pretensions, and they would come in very shabby clothes, in torn chappals. And at that time, many of them didn't have much money anyway. C, they openly told me that, look, we can afford so much, very fraction of my fees and no more. I said, that's all right, I'll do it for you. D, they were quite uncannily honest, unlike litigants who come to you. They said, ये हाँ ठीक है हमने ये किया था क्योंकि हमको सरकार support करनी थी. That's another thing I found about them. I then made a mistake. I did well for them in the court. On my own, I called them once and said, look, my name, because Ramakant Khalap of Goa was the law minister. He telephoned me. He said, okay, we have to tell you informally for your consent when we move the file. So we are thinking of having you as ASG. I didn't realize I was innocent of the ways of the government. This was a conversation in early 97. I was appointed, I think, in late 97. So I said, yes. I then started thinking that I am going to become ASG, as if, shortly. So this is a bit of a messy case of corruption. So I do all messy cases, that's not a point. But as somebody about to be appointed, why do this? That was a wrong decision. A, because my appointment came after many, many months. In fact, probably 8-9 months. And B, because after I broke this news to the four of them, they actually broke down. They came to my office for 3 days after that. See, how can you do this? You have not become ASG. And this is true. You continue doing it.
So Shibu Soren actually cried?
He cried. He was very, very emotional. He said, साहब हम लोग तो आपको भरोसा करते हैं. आपने केस अच्छे से किया है. आप चाहते हैं कि आप करिए. And it was my fault actually to be. There absolutely no inhibition why I should not have appeared. It is then that they went to R.K. Anand, and the rest is history.
Another of your early cases was the Sambha spy case, a case which still rings a bell.
This was all when I was an ASG. I was a 37-year-old ASG, and it's a great learning curve because standing across you every major case is a Soli Sorabji, a Fali Nariman, a Vedu Kopal, and here you are trembling in your pants. So you realize the only best friend you have is the number of hours you put in the previous night. Sambha case was a bit notorious because it involved spying against the country. It involved our armed forces. It involved very sensitive issues. I had to put up a spirited defense. The case never got over in my tenure, but we put up a strong showing and we didn't allow easy relief. Some of the people, I believe, much later got some relief. But I was there in a phase where it was being argued. And as is true, I learned a lot in that short phase. I was there for less than 2 years. I learned a lot about how government works. That was the more important part than an individual case.
Which means what?
Which means so many things. I learned, for example, how a file would come to you with a predetermination by the man who sends the file that Dr. Singhvi should write yes. Because he wants to punish you. But it's simpler to get my approval for that punishment. So you have to read between the lines. Why a poor chaprasi के against appeal क्यों file करनी है? वो approval के लिए आती थी हमारे पास. So that instinct to read through and be harsh and say नहीं होना चाहिए appeal file. Secondly, I had very quaint stories. Padmanabh Bhaiya was the Home Secretary then. He was hauled up for contempt notice in Lucknow High Court. The Home Secretary city he telephoned me. He said, ASG को जाना पड़ेगा साहब. मैंने कहा बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है दिल्ली में बहुत सारे आपको now he's a home secretary, so the entire home department turned up, briefed me and went there. I flew to Lucknow. The day before flying, a very sheepish joint secretary comes to me. He says, sir, humming and hawing. I said, क्या बात है बोलो? He says, sir, can I request you to pay the 5,000 rupees required for the Jet Airways ticket? तो मैंने कहा भाई आप लोग पे नहीं करते हो? नहीं, of course we will reimburse you, but there's a rule that you can only fly Air India. And in such short time, we can't get approval for flying jet. Jet is the only flight tomorrow. You have to be there. We were third approval. So I laughed and I paid and went.
Did they reimburse you?
3 years later, if 5,000 or some such figure check came. My staff spent 3 months finding out कि किस चीज़ का चेक है. फिर मालूम पड़ा कि ये 3-4 साल बाद वो 5,000 रुपए की जेट एयरवेज की फ्लाइट का रिइंबर्समेंट आया. देर है अंधेर नहीं है, जब सरकार में मिल गया 5,000 रुपए. उसके अलावा मेरे सब बिल्स पेंडिंग रहे. When I left office, many years later, I wrote to Arun Jaitley's law minister. I said, please take it as a donation to the law ministry.
How much money was that?
कई लाख रुपए तो होगा.
So, dealing with politicians, Manish Sisodia called you Sankat Mochan and Kejriwal calls you God.
Sankat Mochan was coined by Kejriwal at a very interesting gathering of all opposition leaders at Lodi Estate. 2 years later, when he came out, he said that litigants look upon some lawyers as God. And he took my name, that is Manish Sisodia. I don't believe in either of these divine appellations. I believe very much that it's very kind of them. Make the point, that's the real thing. And I have now had the privilege, Kumkum, of appearing across the political spectrum. If I just quickly recite to you Sharad Pawar, Stalin, Akhilesh, Mamata Banerjee and Abhishek Banerjee, of course, the whole gamut of AAP leaders, Arvind Kejriwal, Manish Sisodia, Sanjay Singh, a huge number of Congress leaders without surprise, diverse.
BJP?
I believe strongly that I should be able to appear for BJP. That's not the way politics is today. It used to be possible in the old days. If you have a big toothache, will you go and decide that you go to a BJP dentist or a Congress dentist? You'll go to a good dentist. Technically, that should be. But somehow now the system is such that motives will be attributed. There's no reason why I cannot. And by the way, I'm privileged that I get many briefs from BJP people also. Not many, but some. But then I have to politely say no. There are always people who will misrepresent. Right? And I don't like to argue with the defensiveness looking over my shoulder.
You mentioned Mamata Banerjee, you mentioned Kejriwal, you mentioned Sharad Pawar. But let me ask you, how is it dealing with Kejriwal and Mamata Banerjee, who's quote unquote seen as whimsical, difficult to deal with?
The political class has a very bad image. It's just a given that, ये तो ढीले हैं, अच्छे नहीं हैं, भ्रष्ट हैं, ये है वो है, सबके बारे में एक इमेज बन गई है. If you individually go and examine, you will be surprised that each one of them at least has one or two USPs which has got them where they are. They may have many failings, mind you. Everybody does. But there is a USP. So that is one. Two, each of them, the people you named, have qualities which have got them where they are. They must have got many negative qualities. But Kejriwal, for example, he's an extremely articulate and his connect with the people and his simplicity of delivery is amazing.
What are the fault lines?
I'm not here to discuss fault lines. Everybody has fault lines.
Mamata Banerjee?
Mamata Banerjee, her acuity, her EQ. You may have IQ, you may have EQ. She has IQ in abundance, but she has EQ in superlative abundance. She can touch the chord in the heart and she's, very, very practical. She literally telephoned me out of the blue. I didn't expect a third term that time. And, everybody, Sharad Pawar, he doesn't speak much, but his experience, he's a technocrat. He's not a politician at all when he speaks on some subjects.
Dealing with Rahul Gandhi, what are the differences, the qualitative differences?
Sonia Gandhi, she's a person of great listening ability, great reticence, absorbs, and I've jokingly told her that you are over-consultative. I said in BJP, there is supposed to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But actually all the decisions are taken only by one and they're taken after 2 rounds and finished. In your case, people say that you are 1, 2, 3 and 4. Next man starts at 5. But according to we are too democratic. You ask too much. She started laughing. So she has this repetitively consultative approach sometimes. She is very reserved and she is not knee-jerk in anything. Inside she gets hurt, she doesn't show it. Rahul Gandhi, on the other hand, is more spontaneous, much more spontaneous than. He is extremely well-meaning. But above all, in politics it is not appreciated when he is the straight talk, the straight decision, what he believes is the crux and good for the party. He then doesn't bother about the vested interests, the intervening obstacles, and therefore he ruffles feathers. It's a different matter that it suits them to kind of create a caricature by talking of all these things, Pappu and all that stuff. That's a caricature. If he analyzes.
Between the two, who's easier to deal with?
Sonia ji is much more accessible. Rahul Gandhi he doesn't suffer fools gladly and he's on the move all the time, so he's less accessible.
Your love for animals led you to fight for stray dogs and the Jallikattu.
Unfortunate, I believe very strongly in the independence and autonomy of a person to argue a case, how so unpopular, how so unpleasing, howsoever bad a cause may be. That's a professional judgment. I still believe very strongly that Jallikattu deserved full representation. The first round, I was the one who got relief, fully argued. Unfortunately, then politics takes over, especially in a very vibrant state like Kerala. So they kind of repeatedly carried Abhiyan.
So you succumbed to political pressure.
I'll tell you why. It is not succumb, but it is a form of succumbing, if you like to say it like that. I resisted for a while. Then I came to the conclusion, I told the people who were briefing me, I said, if I go on with this case, every day after the hearing, I'll be looking over my shoulder and I can't give my best to the case. So after winning the first round completely with the judgment and the second round having started, I reluctantly, and I'm speaking so frankly because I am still reluctant, I still believe it was the wrong thing I did. I gave it up. I felt that I couldn't do the same vigor and same feeling which I wanted to.
Stray dogs?
Stray dogs, I'm of course a very great dog lover, but let me say at the outset, Justice Pardiwala is one of the most well-intentioned and one of the most remarkably kind, compassionate human beings. This is my reading of him. I don't know him at all personally. I've never seen him before the Supreme Court. He has a point of view in the blanket order he gave. If you are bitten by a stray dog, all the sermons we give in these interviews are no good. You have to understand your pain. However, where I fault him is that he made a blanket order in a bit of a hurry. The real problem, if you want to be problem solving, is that you have not done your obligation as a state and as a municipal agency to sterilize. The key to all this is sterilize. Now, if you started the targets you set 20 years ago, there would be a sterilized population today. What you do is you don't do. In fact, it's worse. You take bribes and show half the figures you've sterilized, whereas you have to do double the number. So the result is the non-sterilized population will have over-aggressive dogs in between that population, though by and large they are not. Therefore, the correct way would be to give a mandamus of a time-bound schedule for sterilization, give a second mandamus for a time-bound schedule of making shelters, of which there are none, and then pass the blanket order, which was not done. So therefore, I appeared and we got a better, more nuanced order. It is not an overturning of the first one, but it's a more nuanced one. I think there are many, many miles to walk. I equally am balanced enough to say that the activists also have to be balanced. They have to understand the pain and pida of those who get bitten.
At another level, one of the important cases you've listed was the Sabarimala case, where you argued against the right of women to worship at the temple.
I did Sabarimala as a normal case. I was engaged by the Devasthanam. And the very nuanced, fantastic legal arguments we raise are very interesting. Nobody notices them. It is, this dichotomizing into black and white, women and anti-women, this is completely wrong. It's a constitutional issue. Sabarimala, one argument I made was that it is not a ban on women. It is a ban on fertile women between the ages of 10 and 50. 55, which is an arbitrary thing. It could be 60. You could be fertile at 60, but 10 to 50. 2. Why? Because out of 1500 odd images of Lord Kartikeya in India, there's only one of Naistik Brahmacharya, who is in the whole mode of an eternal Brahmacharya, which is only at Sabarimala, out of 1499 others in India. 3. The legal question in Article 14 is, does the ban on women between 10 and 15, less than 10 can go, above 50 can go? Is it having a reasonable nexus to the object sought to be achieved? That is the classification doctrine in Article 14. 14 doesn't say that unequals can't be treated differently. It says you have to show the unequal, put them in different categories. I said, of course there is a reasonable nexus. This image is supposed to depict an eternal brahmacharya. He doesn't want fertile women around him. Therefore, you exclude the below 10 and above 10. This is a valid classification. Now, this is a nuance which is still pending. We lost the original. We won the review. Post-review, it is still pending. But I'm just saying how superficial and dangerous it is to just call it pro and anti-women.
Let me quote you. Had it not been for me, Rahul Gandhi would have lost 8 years of public life, unquote. You said this in reference to the Modi-surname case.
I didn't quite put it like that. What I said was that the consequences of Rahul Gandhi losing that case would be an 8-year exclusion from politics in the formative years of his political life. Obviously, I got him relief, so I was the medium. But an interesting thing you must note is that he lost in the trial court. He lost in the appellate court. I went to Gujarat High Court alone to argue, and we lost there after 2.5, 3 months delay. When the Supreme Court matter started, one day we had a conversation on telephone. I said, look, I do cases every day, and I've transcended the place where I carry it in my mind. But for your case, I'm having sleepless nights because it is neither a professional case nor a PIL kind of a charitable. It's just something so personal. And I must tell you, Rahulji, that everybody, including people in your camp and my camp, are waiting for me to fail. I told him that. And there is a hostile judge there. There is a crowd in the court. There are people in television behind. They will show all nice words, but they'll be very happy to put the blame. And this whole thing comes to my mind, I feel sometimes tensionized. He said a very interesting thing. He said, look, Abhishek ji, what matters is that I have full trust in you. You forget about the consequence. Harenge to harenge, jeetenge to jeetenge. You go and argue in a normal style. And that is a small little thing which gives a lot of confidence. It happened when the matter came. It went on for about 1 hour or so, and we got this fantastic relief.
In another case about the right to fly the national flag, which you fought for Naveen Jindal, was it more emotional or was it just a case?
No. It's nothing to do with emotional. It was, I think, emotional with Naveen Jindal. A story is that Naveen Jindal once went to his Madhya Pradesh, I think his Mandi Deep plant. So one day he decided to fly a flag on his factory. After some time, the local commissioner came and said, what the hell are you doing? Please take it off. You can't do it. So he posed two very interesting questions. He said, okay, I can fly a Pakistani flag technically inside my house, but I can't fly Indian flag. And Indians can fly Indian flags anywhere except India. What kind of funny thing is this? He filed a Delhi High Court petition. I was on the counsel. I had nothing to do with the case. When Naveen Jindal came to me, it became clear after a while that though obviously I was in the middle level and fees is always welcome, it was an unpaying case. But Naveen stood by his stand and Naveen stood by his convictions, which is what got the case where it is. And then we vigorously argued it in constitutional terms, saying it is part of my right to free expression and speech. How can an Indian be denied? The only condition can be the right is not to fly the flag, it is a right to fly the flag respectfully. I can't fly the flag in a disrespectful manner. And then matter went on for Justice Khare was always a little hesitant to give full relief. But ultimately he realized it and we got a thumping victory.
So was it just a case for you or was it emotional?
As it went ahead beyond the initial stages of the Supreme Court, it became an emotional case. It was obviously run from the heart. It is not emotional in the sense you are saying. It is emotional, that's just for Naveen Jindal. It became emotional for me because the very delicious legal questions were involved, constitutional questions. Nobody examined them. So obviously it was an emotional issue, but then it was a constitutional issue above all.
So for you it was that more than emotional?
Yes.
Do you fly the national flag at your house?
I have it at various places on my table, on my other places. Naveen Jindal every year sends me different kinds of flags.
But then strangely, it was the BJP who actually retrieved the flag sentiment with this Har Ghar Tiranga. The Congress and Jindal, everyone forgot about it.
Campaigns which are intended to be political campaigns may not be true nationalism. Could you fly the flag without this case? And you can always whip up nationalist frenzy. That doesn't mean always that it's true. Nationalism has so many facets.
But you'll have to agree that the BJP really brought the flag center stage.
I don't think so. BJP has brought a far cheaper variety of nationalism to the center stage where everything you must wear on your sleeve. What you eat, how you speak, what you say, that is nationalism, which I completely condemn on the contrary. The man who brought it center stage has to be Naveen Jindal. and his senior advocate Abhishek Singhvi. Because we gave you the right to fly the flag respectfully.
What was the story behind the bundle of notes found on your seat in Rajya Sabha?
There was a non-story made into a story by the former vice president. There's nothing. One, if you say 50,000 is carried by mail, put in the bag, it makes there's no sense to it. Anybody can put 50,000 there and start blaming you. The issue is, the normal way would be to just have an internal inquiry and say, bhai, kisi le liya. The vice president, completely wrongly, I have no hesitation in saying so, announces from the chair in a grave voice, and I told him, I said, it sounded like there was a terrorist attack or a bomb found under my seat. 50,000 has been found, and he announced a full name. He could have had an inquiry. 3 months after that, there was no report ever.
So what is the backstory?
How do I know? The backstory on that day, this is a rumor, I don't know. The rumor is on that day, it is the first time the BJP wanted an adjournment, the major issue going on. So any story will make an adjournment. I don't understand. Anybody could have put it there. 40, 50,000 is money allowed by the income tax, has put it there and is too embarrassed to claim it now. That's what has happened.
You know, you summed up the Congress situation, and I quote, by the time you take the first decision, the third is overdue. Same bottle, same wine, all must change.
I've said it as a general delaying process in many, many parties. It does happen partly in the Congress also, as it happens elsewhere. I mean, I will be less than candid if I said so, I did not say so. Thing is, you should take time to consider all the options. Once you take the time, A, you have to announce it swiftly. B, you have to stick to it. I think the dictatorial nature of the administration in the BJP means that they take very swift decisions without even, much consultation. For example, there is no party on planet Earth which can remove their own vice president in 8 hours. It does happen that some decisions delayed over time lose the sheen. See, if I have to appoint you, I must do a month of intensive Janampatri seeing of yours in every which way. I should make you completely transparent. But once I decide that Kumkum Chadha is the best person for this job, by just keeping you hanging and not announcing it, A, you take away the dynamics, you take away the momentum, you take away the direction, and you make that person disillusioned.
So how much of this applies to the Congress?
Certainly a part of it applies to the Congress. It applies to a lot of other parties. It applies less to the BJP because we're absolutely ruthless, dictatorial manner.
While on the Congress, don't you feel that the party to which you have given so much kind of shortchanged you, never made you minister? And you've often compared yourself to as the Karan of Mahabharat or the Vice President of the US.
No. I have never done that. People have. I am fortunate in that I have various alternative vocations. I think my strength is that I'm not dependent on politics. Yes, by 2009 onwards, not me once, but a whole series of people were either genuinely with concern and love and affection asking me the question you asked me, or having taunts and jibes at me.
Don't you feel shortchanged?
I must tell you, I would not use the word shortchanged. Congress has given me a lot of posts, very important, CWC, chairman of the law department, chairman of 3 parliamentary committees.
But less than what you deserve, never made you minister.
I do believe that the dynamics of this in the Congress, it's not whether I was appointed or not, don't work in the correct manner, in the correct time. Because sometimes, let me share with you, which I can't say in detail. The Honorable Prime Minister then, in front of me and in front of 2 other people, has said, we had to appoint him and not you this time. You were earmarked for this ministry because we had to represent that state. Nothing can be more transparent than that. But my question is, if you had this twice, it was said to me, then you should not have a place for lamentation. Obviously, one is disappointed, but God has been kind and things have worked out well. And I did not feel depressed or miserable in that sense. You have an expectation, and also, frankly, if you're in politics, it's a stamp. A former cabinet minister's stamp is never permanent.
Which eluded you?
Yes, of course it eluded me. The Kaun Banega Crorepati had a very interesting session I didn't know about. Amitabh Bachchan had one particular question where he gave tick the one who was not a cabinet minister. So they gave 4 names including mine, and most people got it wrong.
Now about adversity and personal trauma. Take me through the difficult moments of your life and how you have overcome them, not overcome them. They've left a mark.
I genuinely believe that all the MAs and the PhDs I have are of no use unless I have a degree from the University of Adversity.
I was coming to that quote of yours.
I've said so earlier. And God has been kind. I had a very fulfilling life. I don't pray as such, but I do a prayer which my father taught me, which says in the prayer in the shower only. I do it in the shower, which kind of indicates that, unless there is, God will not hold the aces unless He shows the aces once in a while and makes you realize that there is a God. Otherwise, you will think that there is no God. Now, when adversity strikes, and mostly it is untruthful, unfair, and you can sit down and lament how unfair. There are 4 things which matter at such times, and in that order. First is if you believe in anything called God or a being or a guru. That matters a lot. 2, if you convince yourself that it's your soul which matters and nobody can take your soul unless you give it to them or are prepared to give it to them. 3rd, your family, that too in a very narrow sense. Immediate family or some family, not all. And 4th, friends, not the acquaintances you meet in Delhi. I have also become much more cynical, but I believe that life is made up of 3 categories of people. 1, if they see you in the ditch, will actually go past you, pick up a shovel and put more earth on it. Unfortunately, that number may be more than 50, even 60 or even 70%. 2nd category which will pass you by and neither give you a helping hand but not put shovel more earth. They'll just whistle and walk by, uncaring, indifferent. Then there is this remarkable 20%, 15%, 25% category of people who will pick out a helping hand. This is a world which looks up to the rising sun. But you must not lose your equanimity. And I also believe that the legal profession, for all the adjectives we use, noble and all, has a lot of jealousy. I'm talking about the litigating part of the legal profession. See, I was in 2 professions, public life and litigation, which are both heavily competitive. So this excessive physical proximity, so there's this huge envy quotient. Envy not because I've hit you, but just because you are envious of what I'm doing.
Envy or jealousy?
Oh, same. I mean the same thing, various degrees of that.
2 of your quotes stand out. I am no Gandhi and I'm unlikely to forgive and forget. And the second, which you of course explained, I've had a dream run. Something has to happen. Otherwise, why will anyone remember God?
The second thing you said, I used to tell many people because I was a very early achiever, youngest senior advocate ever at 34, youngest ASG at 37, member of Rajya Sabha in 45, etc., etc. You can't have a dream run all the time. And there's an equalizer. You have a good run first, you have a good run later, you don't have a good run at all. This happens all the time.
I'm no Gandhi, I will not forgive and forget.
I have seen the worst part of human nature. Unfortunately, I cannot name. I wish I could. My contemporaries, my rivals, my so-called friends, and then the ones who are largely unknown to me who turned out to be true friends. So if you see that actually, you see how you are ostracized, how you are written off as dead, how people gleefully rub their hands that there'll never be a homecoming. And yet within 3 months, the same people are there to lick your boots. So you become cynical and you become distant. But Gandhiji had a great quality. I am not Gandhi. I will not do necessarily anything, but I will not easily forget what you did to me. Occasionally I may forgive, but I will not forget. Occasionally I may forget, I will not forgive. I don't know.
Let me now wrap up about the women in your life, your wife and another person before her.
Well, clearly the maximum influence on me right up to the mid-20s was my mother. Because my father had very little time and my mother took care of everything domestic. And I think her discipline, her practical approach and the time she spent made a lot of difference. I don't say that as a typical, Indian boy who's a mother-oriented boy, but it's truth also. However, you never, you grow out of your mother syndrome. And I've been very independent from my mid-20s. I had a file made by my mother, literally organized with, I was a fairly eligible bachelor from Jodhpur. And I had good students coming back from abroad and this file was ready, about 20, 30 good names, biodatas and photographs. And on top was a girl, who was a very nice girl, I don't name her, whom I met. But for a variety of reasons, it didn't work out, it didn't go through. The second name was Anita's, my wife's. So, as usual, said, why don't you go to Jodhpur and have a look-see? When I went there, it is not done in our culture that you stay in your prospective bride's home. So I stayed at my father's uncle's or father's first cousin's home. They had a old style house like a Haveli. But the bathrooms were all WCs of the Indian style. Now, I've just come from England. I've been living in Delhi. And then the shower place was also not good. So I had met them in the day. So I mentioned this indirectly to my prospective father-in-law. So he said, "Ki bhai, kya farak padta hai? You have a separate room, a large house, comfortable house. Why are you so uncomfortable? Don't worry, I will talk to that uncle or that." I was all keen. Then, of course, we spent a whole day together. It was her father, actually, not my wife. My wife is a very shy person, and I wish she was as shy now. She's very aggressive now. But her father was very keen that he lands this catch. And he kind of... So what my father objected to later in a humorous manner was that the same day in the night, I gave a yes. He said, "Arey bhai, itni akal honi chahiye ki ek do din ruk ke bolte, ghar aake Delhi aake bolte." So that is the story.
But it was Anita who changed you from a miser to a large spender. And to quote you, "I married an expensive wife." In fact, the shirt you wore when you went to meet her, family made them suspect that you were really poor.
You know, that story is very interesting. In the old days, in those days in Jodhpur as indeed today, there's a fixed time where a tailor will come home always and sit in your house. Like a nai will come for doing your cutting of the hair. So the tailor would come and, he'd do all the rafu work and all the repair work, etc. So you'd come like 2 or 3 days a week or 1 day of the week, whatever. Now it happened that it was around the time when I went. So after I left, this tailor, who was an old family tailor, tells my mother-in-law, he says कि भाई साहब को आप सही घर पे दे रहे हैं ना, क्योंकि जो मैंने कपड़े देखे इनके, I was a very casual dresser, as a hard worker. इनके तो नीचे से वो हुए में, they're frayed at the edges, and even the collars are gone. So at least you've checked up that it's a good household you are given where she'll be able to survive comfortably on economic terms. So that story, of course, came back to me later. But it is not that I was ever a miser. I just did not, I was so busy in my various works that I was never interested too much in that. My wife is not a spendthrift, but the large spending comes from a different angle. She's a very creative person. So she's a jewelry designer, a painter, a singer, and has designed the whole house also. In that process, as I grew in my professional stature and earned more money, these things come expensive. The second part of the problem, she is very brand conscious.
I was coming to that. She made you brand conscious.
No, me later, but she is so brand conscious that she will only go for, you'll not believe it, that if there's a sale, she will avoid that section. She'll go, she says, good things are never on sale. Till 45, I hardly ever traveled in business class. But I started buying from my 50s. And once you become brand conscious, it's very difficult to de-brand yourself. That is a problem. So now, of course, I don't need to be so economical. I mean, God is kind, we have more funds. But, you frequently know that the same product is good enough in another non-branded item, but you go for the brand. That's the problem.
On that note, let me thank you. Let me thank you for your time and this wonderful conversation where you took me through your life and times and down memory lane.
Thank you so much, Kumkum. Thank you for having me, and I enjoyed it.